Okay, hi everybody. This is Seth. I'm CEO of the Liquid Group, and I'm joined here by Walter Kok, who is CEO of the Energy Web Foundation. Walter, welcome.
Thanks, Seth, for having me, and hi, guys, to everyone.
Great. So I think most of the people viewing this probably already know a little bit about yourself, but if you could please share some of your experience before you joined Energy Web and jumped into blockchain world.
Definitely, Seth. So I'm a veteran, as you can see in the color of my hair. So I'm an electrical engineer by background, always worked in telecoms, almost 25 years. Then some companies like British Telecom, Global Services, Vodafone. And then my last 4 years before I joined Energy Web, I worked at ING Bank, a large financial institute in the Netherlands, but it's global. Always worked as a chief operating officers like yourself. Drove a lot of transformation, digitization. And that's also in 2015 where I got in touch with blockchain, because for banking, of course, blockchain can be very disruptive. So then I got a call from the CEO of Rocky Mountain Institute, and whether I wanted to join as the COO of Energy Web, which I did end of 2018. And since July last year, I'm the CEO leading the company.
Wonderful. So we've compiled questions from the community that they wanted to ask about Energy Web, and look, we had some great questions, but I had a question I wanted to ask you before we get into the project. Sure. When did you get your first Bitcoin, and how did that come about?
All right. That's a good question, Seth. So I think this was in 2015. Yeah. And I was literally forced into it. So a good friend of mine, he was already in it from 2012, and he said, Walter, go and buy it. It was actually before the halving. Yeah, it was before the halving in 2016. And so it was 2015, and he said, just do it. And I said, look, I have no idea how to do it. And then he bought it for me, and he kept it. And then it was half a Bitcoin, actually, half a Bitcoin. And then when it was ready in 2016, 2017, I had my treasure, and then I received it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, great story. All right, so let's jump into the questions here. The first question we have is from @CryptoDeck. And the question is, I'm holding EWT long term. Is there any plan to expand the token utility other than protect the network and compensate validators?
That's a very good question. Yeah, definitely there is. So of course, we are a proof of authority chain, as you know, the Energy Web chain. And our token has the same function as the Ethereum token has on mainnet Ethereum. So Energy Web token is used to pay for gas. And of course, the validators, they mint the new Energy Web tokens. But on top of the Energy Web chain, which we call the trust layer, we actually have the utility layer. And our Energy Web token has much more utility than just paying for gas. So it will be a mechanism also to pay for identity or for other services in the utility layer. And as we speak, we're actually exploring with our members, can we also start to introduce some staking mechanisms, because the more we decentralize, of course, the more also staking becomes relevant for us. And we're probably going to do that on the utility layer. Yeah.
Got it.
Good question.
Okay, great. Next question is from Sergey 39417959.
All right.
That's because 758 was already taken. And the question is, how is EWT managed? Who makes key decisions with regarding to new features, options, new partnerships, listings, etc.? Can the community participate in this?
Yeah, so we are perhaps a little bit of background on Energy Web. So we started in 2017, and we're not like three people that actually said let's build a blockchain company and then off we go. That's actually was started by 12 of the largest. Well, we had two founding members, Rocky Mountain Institute and Grid Singularity, but they actually got together 12 large energy enterprises, companies like Shell, Stadin, Engie, TEPCO from Japan, and they all 12 plus these two said, yeah, let's go and do this. So it already started with 14. Then it's rapidly expanded. So when we launched our chain in June, we had more than 100 affiliates, and now I think we're at 130. So it's this group of companies that decides on where to go next. And within that group, the most active one are the validators, around 30 at this moment in time. So anything we do when it comes to the Energy Web chain, protocol upgrades, new clients we introduce, that's all decided in that community. Yeah.
Wonderful. Next question is from Michael Kizikian. How soon do you expect to see the impact of decarbonization, including the work of EWF?
Oh, actually, two questions. So, we're in a world, of course, where the impact of decarbonization is still a long way to go. Actually, recently in Europe, I heard it yesterday, the European Commission is urging all the countries to go faster, and I think that's definitely needed. I'm not sure about how it is in Tokyo these days, Seth, but when we look in Europe, summers are changing and so are winters. So we definitely have a problem, as society overall. So as far as we're concerned, it can't go fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it takes time. So the decarbonization itself, and what we set out for Energy Web and with all our members is, okay, let's deploy this technology to speed up decarbonization. So, but realistically, we're working for the decarbonization impact 5 to 10 years. But of course, the sooner it gets adopted by the utilities, the faster we will go. Mm-hmm. And we're already seeing impact, of course, through the direct markets, so the markets of certificates that stimulates investments in green assets. And everybody who's buying green assets, whether it's an electrical vehicle or whether it's rooftop solar, et cetera, heat pumps, I think that is all contributing. But it has to start with changing behaviors of all of us, including people who ask the questions. And then, the technology will help to speed that up and facilitate that transition.
Does the consensus mechanism as well, would you consider it a green consensus mechanism?
Yeah, definitely. So when we launched the Energy Web chain, we deliberately did not do a proof of work because that would be way too carbon intensive. So we have a proof of authority, which of course is way less power consumption. It's like running an email server. But even then, we offset it. So we buy certificates to offset our carbon footprint. We actually just did. We launched Energy Web Zero. You might have heard about it. So also Ripple and XRP Foundation are now offsetting their blockchain. But we already did that. And so we're totally green. Yeah. It wouldn't be, we have to drink our own champagne. We couldn't be talking about decarbonizing the world and not doing it ourselves.
Makes sense. Thank you. So next question, it's from Rito1673. Why did Energy WebX choose to collaborate with Liquid Global? And what are the advantages of holding EWT tokens on Liquid Global?
Well, the last one probably you can best answer, but I'll give you my view. So it was a deliberate choice to work with Liquid Global. And we're still very pleased with that choice, Seth. So compliments to what you're doing with your team. Reason is that Energy Web operates the energy markets are regulated markets. And there were, particularly when we launched that chain, there were strict requirements around US people that they were not able at that time to buy the Energy Web token. So this was June when we launched it, September when we listed. Since then, we also got approval from the SEC. So we are a little bit more relaxed. But since we operate in a regulated world, our members were very clear. They said we want to make sure that we work with an exchange that has good KYC practices in place, and that's why we chose Liquid Global. I think on the second question, why would you recommend to hold tokens on Liquid Global? My personal recommendation would be don't necessarily hold large amounts of Energy Web tokens on any exchange. I think it's safer just to get them to your wallet. But I know, because you've explained it to me, that the security measures Liquid Global takes are quite thorough. So I think it's a safe place. But a good practice in general, I would say, I'm not sure about your view, Seth, would be don't leave too many large holdings on any exchange, because as we've seen with recent events, it can be hacked.
Sure. Well, I would say, I think a lot of the people in the community know we've made major investments in our security architecture. You can be sure that the people that are hacking the exchanges, they definitely try to hack Liquid as well. And so far, we have a very good track record of being good custodians of our clients' assets. And I don't see that changing. What I do see changing, though, is we're going to continue to offer transparency in the forms of, for instance, penetration testing results. I think the community has seen that we've really invested a lot in improving our service levels. I know we've done a study and we're probably processing most EWT withdrawals in 90 seconds or less, 24/7. But we've done so without taking any cutting corners of our security profile. So sometimes there may be a delay, but it's more because we're checking that this transaction is valid and it's going to the intended
Yeah,
recipient. Obviously, the KYC is something that we've always been part of our DNA. And that's part of it as well. Turns out villains don't like to provide all of their identifying documentation.
yeah,
So I personally keep most of my crypto assets at liquid, but I certainly understand. But I also think our job is as an exchange to add value so that people can avail themselves of yield and interest bearing. And these are types of products that we're working on so that, it's not just a risk they get of leaving their assets, but they can actually benefit from working with an exchange like ours. So I think you'll
yeah.
hear more from us in Q4.
It's a very good point, actually, because yeah, you also leave your money in the bank account. So I think when the whole sector matures, it probably becomes more normal. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
And there's definitely also some negatives on being self-custodial.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's yeah, yeah. So it's
I
balance, I
myself, I've
guess.
tried using MetaMask, and it it could be a scary proposition sometimes. So
Yeah, it's not
yeah,
intuitive. I agree. I agree.
yeah, cool. Okay, so moving on. So next question is Needham Sadewa. Question is, while marketing is a central element for every project, so that everyone knows the potential that a project can bring to its vitals to achieve the goals set, what is your strategy to attract new users, investors to your platform and keep them long term?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for those who don't know, but I'm Dutch, and it's a tiny country somewhere in the world, but people know Amsterdam, I'm sure. Dutch people have a very simple approach to business life or life in general. We just like to say how it is, and then we do what we said. So basically, we say what we're going to do, and then we do what we're going to say. And what we're very much focused on is. And I know in marketing terms that might always not be smart in the short term, but in the long term, we strongly believe in it. We're not hyping what we do. We're not overhyping what we do. We're very realistic. We are on a mission to make an impact in the real world. We want to decarbonize the grid, and we do that through our Energy Web DOS and also our Energy Web chain. Token plays an important role in it, but it takes time. So what we do marketing-wise is we work with our members and a lot of new members, like the Vodafone announcement that some of you have seen. There will be other big announcements also on more on the banking side, because also these assets need to settle. We do real work in the real world, and then we talk about it. And our mission is to decarbonize the world, and we've created a real good ecosystem around it with real good let's say, application of the open source software and the blockchain in it. And yeah, that's the story we tell. And we now also start to learn how to explain it better in the crypto world, but we're very much focused on creating real impact in the real world. So any tips are welcome if people have good ideas on how to market it better.
Yeah, fair enough. I've personally also subscribed to the theory that you build it and they will come. And this applied before blockchain world, and it applies to blockchain world.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciate that's your approach. I've known you for a while now, and I've seen how the project has progressed. Short-term announcements, the industry is kind of filled with characters that make announcements about announcements, and I know
Yeah.
that's not something that you guys do. And it's a long-run strategy that I definitely appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also, I think, we work with the largest enterprises around the world, and look, they are serious enterprises. They are companies that make billions of revenue, and for them, this helps them in how they operate a business. But they stay far away from a lot of, if not all, they're even listed on exchanges. So there's
Right.
we're in the real world, and I think from what I can see. The industry is changing. I mean, the crypto industry, there's more enterprise adoption coming, which is great. So I think 5 years from now, it will be totally different. Yeah.
Great. So, like any business, even in the renewables and decarbonization and provenance of clean energy, there's rivals. So there's a question here from @BusyMind. What is your plan against other competing protocols that are trying to disrupt the energy markets?
Yeah, so I think there's two answers to that. So like I said, our focus is on decarbonizing the world, and we play a part in that. So any initiative that tries to achieve that same goal, we're 100% behind it. So our view on competition is a little bit different in that sense. Then when it comes in, who do we encounter on a day-to-day basis? I actually think that our biggest competitor is the sector moving too slow or not wanting to move. And that's why we're very fortunate with our members, who are all grid operators or energy sector participants. They want to move and they need help, so that's what we're doing. So I would say the biggest competitor is those companies that don't want to move, but we're not really suffering from that. And then there's a broader category of competitors, which is more, so we are very much into an approach of open sourcing everything we do, making it open so anybody can participate. If you want to deploy an application on the energy web chain, you can. It's exactly the same as deploying an application on mainnet Ethereum. But there's also, of course, approaches that are more centralistic and more permissioned. And but then again, it's a different way of solving the problem. We're not, we don't think that's not our approach. But if that approach also delivers decarbonization, perfect. And we work a lot with others. So we don't very much think in competitors or something like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, decarbonization and that's all. Global warming is all of our problems, right?
Exactly.
I'm here in Tokyo, Japan. I'm actually, you probably figured out, well, I'm not actually Japanese. I'm from California. And I got a call from my mom earlier this summer in August, and she told me that downtown San Francisco was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but I'd never heard of such a thing. I couldn't believe it. I thought she was she was wrong, but it turns out it's true. And it kind of was a wake up call for me that things have really changed. And that, all of us working together have to figure out green energy. So
totally.
I appreciate the spirit of collaboration with other people in the space.
Yeah, and also if we see announcement we always reach out. Now and then we get back, hey, we see you as a competitor. Oh, fine, but we don't see it. We want to work together, and there's different routes to the same solution.
Great. So we have a question here from NeuroCrypto. What language will be used for development, and what is the advantage of developing on your platform?
Yeah, so basically we are our blockchain behaves like mainnet Ethereum. So anything that runs on Ethereum will operate on our chain. You just fork it to our chain, you buy some energy web token, and off you go. And we've done so. For example, Chainlink, we forked Chainlink onto our chain. It works. Of course, it then utilizes our token, not mainnet Ether, not ETH, etc. So it's Solidity or whatever you use to program on Ethereum now. And of course, we're looking into new architectures. So we're working very closely with Parity technology of Gavin Wood. So we're also looking in Polkadot substrate type solutions. But we're also very interested in ETH 2.0, how it works. So we're looking, we basically want to provide that base layer so that any energy asset can have an identity, and then on the application layer we actually leave it to our members, but they can pick whatever they like.
Great. Next question is from Henry A 11938225225. What are some examples of EWDOS?
Yeah, so basically what we noticed is when we launched the chain, that was of course a big milestone for us and all our members, but then we soon realized for blockchain to have a real function in energy markets, you need to do more. The big difference with blockchain, for example, in financial markets versus energy market, is that in financial markets, blockchain is very disruptive in the sense that it's a decentralized approach it's another form of cash, and it's actually a distributed ledger rather than a central ledger. And a bank, of course, operates on the central ledger. So that's quite disruptive. In energy, the whole decentralization actually doesn't happen because of the blockchain. It happens because people like you and I are buying energy assets like an electrical vehicle or rooftop solar or a smart thermostat. So rather than having big central power plants having to produce the energy, if everybody is rooftop solar, you get much more decentralized way of producing energy. If you then have a battery or you have an electrical vehicle so you can store energy, again, you have consumers buying energy assets. So the whole decentralization in the energy sector is actually happening because of changing behaviors and of course of the move to green. And then you see that blockchain creates a real good opportunity to support that. And that's basically what we do in Energy Web does. So we support buyers of green energy assets to utilize those assets in energy markets. These markets exist today. So if there's lots of money being floating around in the energy system that can now go back to the consumers, which is great. So because you've invested in it, you can also make some money. So that's use case one that we support, and we call that Energy Web Flex. So your vehicle or your rooftop solar can start making money for you as a consumer. And the other big use case we see is the whole markets around energy certificates. So if you produce green energy, there's actually certificates and they can be traded. And that's what we do with Energy Web Origin. And there's many markets. There's in Thailand with PTT, or in Latin America, in Turkey, we do that. And the last big use case we see that we're working on with our members is all around asset supply chain of assets. So if a battery enters a country, you register it, it then moves to different owners, and then at the end of the life, it gets reused or whatever happens to the battery or destroyed. And that whole life cycle management of energy asset is also a use case. So that's why we're focused on mainly. And then the other thing we start seeing happening is a lot of new, what they call peer-to-peer energy markets. That's still a little bit further away, but those are actually other markets that start to operate on our chain. So rather than having wholesale markets, you actually get decentralized energy markets, so you can trade energy with your neighbor or the school around you. But that's still a little bit into the future, but it's starting to happen too.
Got it. So almost decentralized clearing of the energy, the provenance of energy assets,
Correct.
and also being able to track the provenance of clean energy, right?
Yeah.
And to authenticate that it is actually green, which I guess, as we move to more green energy, that becomes increasingly important.
Totally, and also, for example, in the certificate market, you avoid the double spend problem. So if I've claimed a certificate already, I can't claim it again for another market, etc. And I think what we did, particularly on the provenance of energy, we last week we launched the initiative with what I already mentioned, Ripple and XRP, the Ledger Foundation. So we're also calling out to other blockchains. Let me do it here too with what we call Energy Web Zero, is that let's practice what we preach. So we actually try to mobilize all the blockchain initiatives and say, decarbonize yourself. And then again, we can you can easily verify, okay, there's so many, for example, Bitcoin miners that use coal or whatever. You just offset your footprint. And I think that's again one around provenance of energy, but then specifically to our own sector. And we want to again lead that with the sector, of course. It helps.
Great. So next question is also from Henry A. I won't read all the numbers. You can go back on the tape, but
225.
Yeah. Good memory, Raul. So for each platform, the factors that attract more users are low transaction fees, high levels of security, and ease of operation. Can you ensure these requirements for users?
Yes, that's actually one of the main design criteria when we started with Energy Web and our chain was around cost of transaction, because the energy sector works with extremely low margins. So that's why we actually moved to a proof of authority mechanism. And today we actually did the calculations last week. At this moment in time, we are around 75,000 times cheaper than mainnet Ethereum, and 3 times faster. Our block time is 5 seconds,
I
and
noticed
that is
that.
because our members, they run their own business. They don't need the income from the validator nodes they run to make up their P&L. So the transaction costs are extremely low, and we will always keep them extremely low. And because that's totally the whole setup of how we operate our infrastructure, also at the DOS level. So we will always keep the transaction fees low and the throughput high. So because that's essential for running the markets we're in.
Excellent. Okay. Next question is from Maddie's 596. Where do you see this project in 5 years' time?
That's a very good question. Where do we see this project in 5 years' time? Well, at that time, we should be totally decentralized. So we're already on that path. So when we started the chain, we were with 10 validators. Now we're 30. We want to grow it to around 100. But then we want to push it even further. Like I said before in the beginning, we want this whole utility layer to further decentralize. Because what's going to happen in 5 years' time is that a lot of consumers are actually also producers of energy through solar, rooftop solar, etc. And we want all these people that have invested in energy assets that are green, we want them also to participate in the decisions of what's next, etc. Really make it a movement. So we start with the sector, we then expand to broader, perhaps to other enterprises, and then more and more to consumers. So much more decentralized. At that time, 5 years from now, we should have created real impact on decarbonizing the world. So we should have measurable proof that we've contributed to decarbonizing the sector. And and I think we will have a lot of assets connected, millions hopefully, or hundreds of millions to our Energy Web decentralized operating system, having an identity and being used in many markets. That's the vision.
Wonderful. So last questions from me. Just so everyone knows, I'm not eligible for the prize, but I did want to ask. So, one of the questions I ask myself as part of my business is, what are the catalysts for more real world adoption in the short to medium term? And so I guess for Energy Web, what do you see as a catalyst for adoption of EWDOS for utility companies and grid operators?
Yeah. So I think what we already see is these use cases that I talked about, flexibility markets, providence of energy. Those are real. They're happening today, and I think the biggest anything we can do to speed up the adoption, I think is helpful for achieving a mission. So I would say overall, the crypto space becoming a little bit more mature would be really helpful. So I think it's still in a lot of discussions, and I've been at the SEC and I've been in regulators, and they still look at crypto as something. It's much better. So I think we should all really strive to make this space much more credible.
Yes.
And there are enough serious initiatives. There are enough serious global exchanges like Liquid, and perhaps we should launch a new global initiative to just beef up the whole sector. I would be very much in favor of. But I think the crypto sector as a whole to become more credible is one very important element.
Sure.
And then I think the UI, I can work with Ledger and Trezor. I can work with MetaMask, etc. But I can't tell my wife or my kids to do it, and they're also very smart people. So right. I think simpler user interfaces is another one to really speed it up. And then everybody, I think the more green assets everybody starts to buy, so all go and buy an electrical vehicle or all go and invest in green, I think that will also help, because the more green assets there are, the more the utilities and the grid operators have to accommodate them. And lastly, and that's happening too, is the regulators, but that's already so in whatever country you are, put pressure on your local politicians to open up these markets and become greener, because the regulators, they also need to push it harder, even harder as they do today.
Great feedback, Walt. Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
so really, I've enjoyed having this talk, and I hope that the community has also learned a lot about what you guys have accomplished and what's on your roadmap. We also wanted to look at the list of questions and award 2 winners. They're going to get some EWT tokens, and
Okay.
so maybe I'll pick one and you can pick one in terms of the winners.
Yeah, I need to put on my glasses. So I think the question of that ended at 225. I can't remember the second question of
Right.
person.
For each platform, the factors that attract more users, low transaction
Yeah,
fees,
and
high level security.
I think that is spot on. So I would say for me he's the winner. If I
Okay.
can choose between the winner and not, because that is so fundamental to the sector and how we designed it. So the person really nailed it with his question.
Okay, great. And I'll pick one as well. Sergey 3941. I won't read the rest, but he's talking about governance and who makes decisions and how can
Yeah,
the community
great
participate, which
question.
was obviously really important for blockchain, is that you have community and adoption. So
Totally. Yeah.
so we'll be awarding both these winners some EWT tokens. Thanks so much for
Okay.
everyone's participation. Thank you, Walt. It was a pleasure as
Yeah.
always. And hey, maybe we'll do this again in 6 months' time when there's some new, fresh
Sure.
update that we can share with the community.
Happy to do so, Seth. And yeah, again, thanks for being the first exchange we're listed on. We still like it a lot. And yeah, thanks to the whole community for their support. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Walt. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.